Welcome to the Long Range Pursuit Podcast, presented by Gunwerks, where we learn about and share long-range shooting techniques, science, and gear.
All right, let's kick this thing off. Today I'm here. This is Jim Saubier, product manager for Gunwerks, and I'm here with two of our LRU instructors, Brian Poore and Ian Miner, to discuss this new limited edition. So pretty cool. This is our second limited edition. And by limited, this is a 50-unit run, and it's a one and done, one of 50 serialized unit build. And this one's pretty cool, and I brought in you guys to talk a little bit about the heritage and some of the history, and then we'll dig into some of the build. So Brian and I started kind of talking about a build like this. Gosh, it's probably been 6 months or more.
Like that, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, when we started kind of brainstorming around the office a little bit, it grew legs.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I look at this rifle, and I look at it. I'm like, you know what? That is exactly the rifle that 20-year-old Marine Scout sniper Brian would have wanted.
Yeah.
It's like it's subtle, but there's so many differences between that and the original 308. But at the same time, the style and the Krylon paint job, it kind of throws it back to that heritage, which makes it really cool in my opinion.
Yeah. Ian,
It's funny because when I got out, we were running 308s in the Remington 700 chassis system, I believe it was called, but it's the Remington Remington chassis. And then as I was my last months in, we adopted the 300 Win Mag in the AI, I believe is the chassis we had then. But this looks so similar to when I first got in. My time through, we went through 3 different rifles. So we were in the A5 when I first got in, which is very similar to this look, and then to the A6, and then we adopted that 300 Win Mag after. So this brings me back to my early years in the Marines, and would have been 2014, 2015 timeframe. So yeah, a little nostalgia here too. As soon as I, saw one of these in the paint room, I was like, what is going on? So,
And it's pretty funny, because we call it the Krylon, but the slang name for it is a rattle can.
Yeah.
Because essentially it's a rattle can paint job, but obviously this one's very well done, a Cerakote. But, and that's where that nostalgia comes from, and going back, as in during the Gulf War, and we had the M48-1s, sniper rifle, which hadn't changed much since Vietnam. And so if you looked at the color schemes on them, it was all based upon planning for the next Vietnam War, or the big, Soviet Empire versus NATO war, and, Eastern Europe, where it's all vegetated and woodland camel and stuff. And, so that rattle can came from Desert Storm, where we had these green and black rifles out in the sand environment, and everybody's just taking a tan rattle can to them. And that's kind of the start of it. Because that's the first time I ever saw a painted rifle. Is I remember when we were doing it with the Barretts. We got the Barretts, we painted those tan, and and then it just kind of took off from there. And the real thing about it is that it was really a way for an individual Marine sniper to literally match his gun to his environment for a pretty short window of time. Like if you're working in an urban environment, you want to spray paint it gray, freaking spray paint it gray. If you're out in the desert for, a month, paint it tan.
Yeah.
So what you ended up with after you had a few layers of this paint that's been applied, then chipped off, and then applied and chipped off, is probably some of the ugliest freaking guns that you can imagine. But they're freaking lethal. So that's what's cool about them.
I was looking through some pictures as I knew we were going to be doing this podcast, and I saw some of the A5s that we had in Iraq, and they were exactly that, probably 15 paint jobs on them, and every one of them was worn down to where it was coming back to back to the original green stock again.
Yeah.
But it's funny because you're exactly right, and I think that's how it should be, is that you should be able to personalize your gear and the environment. You're the expert in that environment. And then, of course, the Marine Corps has got to do their thing and get their hands in it. And then there became this order and this, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was this list of you had to paint it a certain way and a certain paint, and you had to, it was for good intentions. But it was the same thing. It was like, hey, we're the artists here. Let us do our work.
Well, yeah, and there was probably some artist that got a little carried away with the 12-pack. Yeah, board that probably created that rule. I'm pretty sure if you put a name to that rule, it's probably got a Lance Corporal in front of it.
Yeah, yeah. But it's funny because this looks exactly like some of our old Gunwerks,
right.
just some of the pictures that I was bringing up. It looks just like it. So super cool. And the Gen 1 Magnus is Macmillan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah,
what we
what we
had.
used.
So I said, that is just super cool to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, this is our Gen 1 Magnus stock that we designed and had Macmillan build it for us for many years, right? So we kind of riffed a little about, the kind of paint that we wanted to do, and for Gunwerks, this is a stretch, right?
Yeah, it's outside of the hunting.
The idea, yeah, right. So it's way different from long range hunting, kind of builds, and so we're brainstorming, and we're like, well, we've got, of course, we've got to Cerakote and make it, durable and go through this whole process. Painted scope, right? That was that was the I think the thing, the rings, and I mean everything's painted, and to get some folks across the line that we're gonna paint scopes, right? We're gonna and creating the plugs and the fixturing to do it without compromising the integrity of the scopes. But the durability and the Cerakote, it's all heat cured Cerakote, and should be, providing character for many years.
Yeah.
It looks way more professional than our masking tape and dip can over the scope.
Yeah.
For scope caps to mask the. Yeah, it looks real nice.
Yep. So this limited edition, like I said, our second one, we kicked off limited editions back in October with the Makers Edition. Really cool build. This is our second one that we're launching late this year. So sometime in a couple of weeks, you guys will hear this podcast, and it'll be in coordination with the launch. So let's kind of break down the details of the build, if you will. It uses one of our Revit Accura RS25i scopes. This is a heavy barrel contour, heavier than we typically use in this kind of application. It's a 20-inch barrel. We've got one of our stainless steel suppressors, 8-inch. So big can, super comfortable and quiet, perfect for this build. It's an add-on. We don't typically do this color scheme in our suppressors, so that this is special again for this build. They will come with a directional brake for folks that aren't allowed to have a can or already have a can, or for whatever reason. The build comes stock with a really aggressive directional brake that's super effective at taming the recoil. It's got an Arca rail, so it can be clamped in our tripod, or as well as pick up front. AICS mags, barricade stop, like all the things that you would expect.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Now, it's just like I was saying, I look at this rifle and I'm like, that's the rifle the 20-year-old Brian would have wanted.
Yeah.
It'd been perfect.
What it's missing is your cut up ISO mat and duct tape for a cheek razor.
Oh, as soon as I get one, I'll put one on.
Yeah. Different style.
It's so funny though, because Ian's talking about that, but that used to be such a thing, is like any stock that you saw on any of the sniper rifles in the Marine Corps, you would see pieces of ISO mat cut to raise the comb a little bit to perfectly match that that individual. And it was usually taped on with duct tape, and then it was painted over the top of the duct tape.
Oh my goodness.
But, because the duct tape's flexible, the paint would chip off, and that silver, for whether it's silver or whether it was, like dark green or black, would start showing through.
Yeah.
So you could always tell it was duct taped.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it's funny. It's just different because the application is just different, right? Is if you're sitting behind a gun for hours and hours, then it's necessary, and you can customize it to do that, and that's what we did. Right?
Yeah.
As a hunting company, it's, the jaw weld is kind of, I wouldn't call it the new craze, but it's like, we have found that, I learned to shoot differently by not having a cheek piece, and it's super comfortable. And now I almost prefer it because it's more malleable.
Yeah. I only need a cheek piece if I'm going to lay there and look through it for an hour.
Yeah. And if you are, then you can build one.
Yeah.
And we'll show you how.
Nice. So, so 300 Win Mag, right? And, we have as I think a lot of companies have almost went away from a 300 Win Mag, and it's kind of a nostalgic cartridge, but we're doing it a little different here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the 300 Win Mag, I mean, in my opinion, is pretty much identical to 300 PRC, and it really comes down to what ammunition you load. And we run a very long action. All our long actions are like, I guess what you'd call like a 375 length action, but if we're anybody else's 300 Win Mag manufacturer, we've got to build ammunition that's going to fit in those shorter, like I'd say a mid-length action, like a 30-06 length action. So that requirement has always handicapped the 300 Win Mag cartridge because you're limited on how long or heavy a bullet you can shoot. But as soon as you chamber it in an actual long action, you don't have that limitation anymore. So you can load those long, heavy bullets way out there and they shoot great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of shooting, it's so funny. So we started out, as we do a lot of times when we're brainstorming, we have this concept and we started with one, we built one, and, right away people got excited about the idea of it. And working with Field Ethos, this is a collab with Field Ethos, and so I built several more. Aaron was headed down there to visit with them on a hunt in Texas, and took along, the guns with him. So I had these 2 guns built. I had them breaking in the barrels in the tunnel, shooting, working up groups, and the two shooters, I had them shoot more than we would ordinarily shoot because I wanted to make sure the barrels were broke in and ready to go and not still seasoning. And so I had them running a bunch of ammo. Very comfortable to shoot. They came back and they both wanted to buy the gun.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know if you know this or not, but Aaron hit us up.
Yeah.
Because he wanted us to
Yep.
actually take it out on the dirt range, where we could actually shoot distance.
Yes.
And just make sure that running it out of a 300 Win Mag, we got the twist rate right to make sure that big 215 burger was really getting the BC that it's supposed to. So Ian and I brought those 2 out there and shot it, and sure enough, they tracked, the drop data versus the BC, tracked perfectly out to, 1,000 yards out there. So yeah, that was pretty awesome. I had a really good time shooting that gun.
We both side by side. Now that I take a step back and look at it, kind of thinking of this project, and then 2 of us got to shoot it together at the same time, and both of us looked at each other and we were kind of like, I want one of these.
Yeah,
because they shot so, and they're easy to shoot.
Yes.
They're a heavy dang gun. I mean, they're not crazy heavy. It's
12.5 pounds.
Yeah.
Which is just about perfect in my mind. Yeah.
Well, for a 300 Win Mag, and a 20-inch barrel, and just super, and the can really tames them.
Mm-hmm.
They're pleasant to shoot.
Yeah, it makes spotting your impact really easy. I mean, I'm not sure I'd want to carry it around in the mountains, although I used to carry a 14.5-pound M40 around in the mountains.
Yeah.
So, I remember once I got out of the Marine Corps, before I came to Gunwerks, I don't think I ever owned a hunting rifle that weighed less than 10 pounds. Because my mentality is that I used to carry 14-pound guns around. These all feel light.
Yeah.
But
That was my exact same mentality. And then came to the western side of the country and went on a few backcountry hunts rather than whitetail hunts. And I immediately was like, I need a lighter rifle.
Yeah, I mean, I think I carried that 10-pound gun around Alaska quite a bit.
Yeah.
But as soon as I started carrying like a 8.5-pound gun around, I'm like,
Wild.
Okay, this feels pretty good.
Yeah.
And that's what always impressed me about Gunwerks, is that we could build an 8.5-pound gun that shot at the level that I was used to with those old 12 and 14-pound guns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of shooting good, I mean, you guys got to shoot it at distance and test and stretch the legs a little. The guys in the range, they shot it, and they each had to put 50 to 60 rounds through each gun, each barrel. And so they're really just running, running hot, just trying to get some reps in. And John shot a 19-shot group I'm not sure why it was 19, but it was so impressive that he went down range, cut it out of the thing. And it was less than a half inch. It was in that 0.5.
Yeah.
19
shots.
19 shots.
Yeah.
In a ragged hole, and you're like, wow, that's pretty special.
Yeah.
So, but no, it was yeah. So the guns are built to really shoot. And
yeah, I thought I'd just take a couple moments to point out some of the features on this gun, that I think, when I say that this is the gun that I'd have wanted, why is that?
I love it.
We talked about the first one in the first place. It's the 300 Win Mag. And Ian and I were talking before we went live here, because they got 300 Win Mags, you said in what, 2018?
Yeah, the end of 2018.
Yeah.
Yep.
I got out in 1994. And in 1994, we were jumping up and down wanting 300 Win Mags. And really, I mean, I understood ballistics, so I knew it was better. But really what had gotten everybody's attention is at the time, the SEALs didn't have their own sniper school, so they come to the Marine Corps sniper school. So usually every class we'd have a couple SEALs in our sniper school, and they're shooting 300 Win Mags. And it was just so obvious how much better it behaved in the wind. It's like they could make bigger errors in their wind calls. And then, you run the ballistics on it. At sea level, that 308 struggles to stay supersonic out to 1,000 yards. This thing will stay supersonic out to about 1,500.
Yeah.
And that's really how you determine the max range that you can really shoot that rifle at, is when that bullet goes subsonic.
Yeah.
So, 50% increase in the max effective range just by going to that 300 Win Mag.
Yeah.
So that's definitely probably the first thing on my list, is just that it's the 300 Win Mag.
Yeah. I was thinking too, just some features that I'm seeing on it that we didn't have is when I first got in, no one had bubble levels on their guns.
Actually, we didn't either.
Yeah. And
we didn't understand how important it was.
Yeah. And when I got to Schoolhouse in Quantico, a couple of them did. So it was starting to kind of get adopted. And I think some gear is kind of lost in a generation, then gained again. And so they may have had it before then or not, but to see a bubble level on there, I'm like, damn, that would have been huge for us. And then another thing is just being able to take the bolt apart the way the Gunwerks bolt is so easy to break down versus the Remington 700 style.
That wasn't even on my list, but that's a huge one.
Yeah. I just think that would have been a cool feature too, especially for us dirt clods out there who everything's dirty and we don't have the tools to take things apart and whatnot. So that would have been really nice.
And you talk about stuff getting lost. It's like, talking to Ian, it's like that M40A1 that I used, I had a unilateral scope on it that had a BDC turret.
Yeah.
And then BDC turrets got lost in the Marine Corps. I still don't think they have them again. But literally that BDC turret, it was calibrated in yards out to 1,000 yards. I'm going to assume it was probably, 60 degrees in sea level or something like that. We didn't really know. But then you basically had a fine tune elevation on there. We could go in half-minute increments. You could go plus or minus up to 3 if you're dialed to that yardage.
Sure.
So you dialed to whatever yardage, and then you'd fine tune it for your atmospherics using that fine tuning.
Yeah.
And then for them to completely go away from that and strictly get their data off of Kestrel, to me almost seemed like a step backwards to a certain degree. I mean, you're figuring atmospherics correctly, but man, just that ability to just dial to a range.
Yeah.
Which this has.
Agreed. And we were just so stressed to memorize our dopes.
Yeah.
But that would have been much easier. And then that comes again back to the RS-25I, is that you can change or exchange that BDC turret.
Yeah, so quickly.
Rather than, we literally would have, 15 pages of dopes from different ranges we did and different atmospherics and whatnot. And some guys probably more. I just wasn't that strict on it. And then it was like, okay, we're going to this location to do this mission. I'm going to look through these pages and see which atmospheric conditions match the closest. When if we could have just flipped a ring on there, that would have been awesome. A new BDC ring, but for that location. So those are the things. The other thing I said was the bipods. We were running the Harris bipods. Were you running Harris bipods in there?
I actually had a story on that. It's like, this is back in the days where
we're getting nostalgic. Oh man!
If you were a Marine Scout sniper, in the 80s and 90s, and if you even suggested the word bipod, like they would kick you out and throw you in the Army or something. It was just that was like a bad word.
It was a crutch?
Oh, it was completely considered a crutch. They said guns don't shoot, get off them. So we just completely, you literally set up the butt pack on your war belt, So it had enough stuff in that was your front support. Like you strategically packed your butt pack so you could throw that thing around in front of you and that was your front support. Or you could use your backpack. But I remember working in Somalia, and we'd be, in that environment where you got so many civilians around, and this is kind of the first time the Marine Corps had been in that environment probably since Vietnam, but it wasn't really a hot war. So, you can't run a machine gun up there, and hose down the street with a machine gun if one shot gets fired as a patrol's crossing an intersection. So we use snipers a lot for like this bounding overwatch. So literally it's like a couple snipers and whatever patrol, we'd bump up to the corner, go prone, cover all the windows and stuff at this intersection. Then once the patrols move through, you literally pick up your stuff and then run back up to the front to cover the next intersection.
Yeah.
And after just a couple times of taking this off, putting it in front of me, putting a rifle on top of it, putting it back on, trying to catch up with them, I'm like, man, bipods seem like a pretty smart thing. I'll take a bipod, please. Let's do that. Yeah.
To have something that's as not maneuverable, but has so many options as the Elevate.
Yeah.
That'd have been sweet too.
Oh yeah.
They still do this. I mean, it's still that same bound in Overwatch stuff. We did a lot of training stuff too, but yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, even Arca rail, I don't know how new Arca is, but that wasn't a thing in the military. It was all hog saddles.
Yeah.
Which is great, but having a flat piece, even just for urban type stuff, would be really good on the bottom of your stock, and then being able to just do that quick rather than having a whole nother piece of gear in your pack tripod. So anyway, those are the features I was thinking of. But
in pre-hog saddle, it was a camera tripod that you'd screw a piece of plywood to, tape some isomat to the top of it, and then just create like a U, stacking the isomat up, and that was literally our shooting support.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I had like a cheap camera tripod that I used for years.
Yeah. I've seen some of those old ones. They're still floating around.
Yeah.
That's cool.
The other really cool feature that people take for granted now, that we didn't have back then, was that detachable magazine. And so you go back to the M48-1, which was designed not too long after the Vietnam War. Carlos Hathcock shot a Winchester Model 70 during the Vietnam War. Marine Corps decides they want to go to Remington 700. Well, the Remington 700 had a aluminum floor plate assembly. The Winchester Model 70 had a steel one. So they decided they're going to marry the two. And, the Marine Corps Armors did a pretty good job of making that steel Winchester 70 floor plate work with the Remington 700 action on a Macmillan stock, but it wasn't perfect. And it's just that it holds 4 rounds. It's got a button that's pretty prominent, pretty easy to hit. So we used to always basically wrap a piece of duct tape around it with a pull tab on it. So if you had a malfunction, you could strip the pull tab, dump all your rounds out, and then clear it. But they would activate accidentally so often that you had to have that duct tape on it. And I remember one night that stands out to me is like we're in Somalia. We're just moving city block to city block. And at night, we'd use our night vision and, work the courtyards and stuff. We wouldn't walk the streets, so we always tried to, basically, yard to yard to yard to yard versus walking the street. So you're going over a lot of fences and stuff. And I can't remember if the duct tape came off or I forgot to put it back on after I cleaned it or something, And so we literally, in Somalia, to keep the thieves out, on top of any one of these, 5-foot high courtyard fences, they glue glass shards. So we throw this freaking flak jacket over the top of it, so we could climb over without impaling ourselves. So I remember coming off the backside of one of this, now we're out like basically on the sidewalk in the street to go across the street so we can climb the next wall so we can avoid using the main street, and as soon as I hit the ground, we're trying to be quiet. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. And that dumped all those rounds, and 4 rounds sitting in the concrete. 2 o'clock in the morning on a quiet night was like the loudest thing I'd ever heard.
And then you're probably doing this in the dark,
like trying to find my bullets in the dark. Yeah, so
it sounds like we need to supply a half roll of duct tape with these guys.
Yeah, that's my scrap
to make them real original.
Yeah.
Oh, those are the features I was thinking of. Kind of the list when I saw Brian, when you were saying this had been your kind of dream gun back then. So those are the features I picked out too. Yeah,
we did actually. The other thing that's different from our typical builds, we use one piece Picatinny scope rail.
Yeah.
So versus our normal, minimalist two
Yeah.
piece.
Yeah. Yeah. It does give you a little more
Flexibility and
flexibility
yeah.
and moving the scope
Yeah.
around and stuff.
It also seems more true to the kind of build.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, probably the other big thing is the suppressor. Because suppressors didn't exist. For the most part, didn't exist in the Marine Corps when I was in. And, I remember working at sniper school. It's like there was nothing you could do to hide blast. So we're doing our stalking exercises and stuff. As the instructors or as the observer that was grading the students, we literally, knew that if I see muzzle blast, unless there's like a big limb hanging down that does this, but if I just see blast, because you can just see blast looking through the binos when it's directed at you, I pretty much ignore that because knowing that there is nothing he can do about that.
Yeah.
So that ability with that suppressor, to cut down on dust getting kicked up, not having to worry about vegetation moving because of that muzzle blast, and calming down the muzzle signature, so that the loudest noise that somebody hears is the snap of a bullet going by. They don't perceive where that shot came from because they hear the sonic crack. For sniper survivability, I mean, you just cannot beat a suppressor. That's how you avoid artillery getting fired at you.
Yeah.
Where else are you thinking?
Gosh, for me, it's I don't certainly have that background, but I just love the heritage of, a big heavy steel barrel, comfortable to shoot gun.
Yeah.
That, and the idea of camo that is so flexible.
Yeah.
I've certainly painted.
And you say comfortable to shoot, but there's actually even more of a practical application that they're forgiving.
Yep.
Yeah. Because when you get guns up around that 12 to 14 pound range, they're very forgiving. They almost shoot themselves.
Yeah.
So in other words, you can have a pretty screwed up position behind it, which you often do when you're working in really uncomfortable environments. You can be exhausted. You can have something else on your mind, i.e. the bullet snapping over your head, and you can still probably shoot a pretty good shot because the rifle essentially shoots itself. As soon as you start cutting weight too much, those rifles become very demanding that as a shooter, you're perfect behind it.
Yeah.
And that's what I always liked about, heavy rifles is, they freaking shoot themselves.
They do. It's a lot more enjoyable to shoot a gun that, first off, shoots extremely well, and secondly, is not beating you up and hammering you.
Yeah.
As to shoot a box or so of ammo. We took I took the sales team out on earlier this week, and we shot, and we set them up. I had the gun set up and BLRs, all the profiles set. First shot, cold bore, 1150 out here at the shooting complex.
Yeah.
Dang.
And, first shot on target, impact, and we rotated through the crew, and you can tell when people are enjoying the shooting, and we're fortunate. We get to shoot a lot of different guns.
Yeah.
So,
it's to really
nice.
get their attention. Hey, this gun is a lot more fun to shoot than what we normally shoot.
Yeah, it's
something.
Yeah.
And you brought up a great point too. Folks that aren't real familiar with Gunwerks, you talked about I think you talked about the wedge in there, right? Or did you mention the bedding block, or I just think of that?
No, talk about it. Yeah.
So, one of the things about the bedding in these guns, is if I go back to the old M40, they were glass bedded by hand by an Armor or a Quantico, and that's essentially with the technology at the time, what it took to get that long range cold bore hit that you talked about. That brought this to my mind.
Yeah.
And, one of the things that happens when a rifle gets manhandled, gets bounced around in an abusive environment, is if there's any room at all for that action to be able to shift inside that stock, you think about it, when you're shooting that rifle, recoil, energy is straight back, so it beats that stock back or the action back into the stock, and it finds its happy place, and that's where your zero is. But there cannot be any ability for that stock to then shift, or that action to then shift back forward, and that's what a good glass bedding job does to a certain degree. And what I think the wedge does even better, because it essentially cams that action to the rear.
Yep.
Because without that, a little bit of mistreatment, a little bit of rough handling, it shifts a little bit forward, and it takes one or two rounds to then reseat it to its happy place. And those first and second shots are oftentimes a little haywire. So the ability of a gun to shoot that good long-range cold bore, it's, I would say, 25% bore cleaning, but 75% mechanical inside that action, and it's the way it's mated to the stock there.
Yeah. No, the bedding block with the recoil lug wedge, certainly is it's consistent, right?
Yeah. That was.
Yeah. So we shot out at 1150, and I had them start immediately at like 1150 was the first shot out of the gun.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty decent sized plate there, and we don't have to worry about wind here in Wyoming. It's never blowing.
Oh.
Yeah. So, but it was not terrible, but there was definitely wind calls to be made. On top of that, so then we moved over, picked out another smaller plate that was much more. It was hanging, so it had a lot more activity. You could see it move a lot better, and that was at 840 maybe, and shot that as well. So I had them moving around. Talk about the so these will come with a turret. But for folks that aren't familiar, our system, our range finding system, and making adjustments for the gun.
Yeah. Well, so essentially, when you talk about a BEC turret, if it's set up correctly, it's going to have this precise bullet that you're using, the ballistic coefficient of that bullet, and then it's going to have the actual muzzle velocity that ammunition gets out of that particular rifle. So in other words, that rifle is chronographed, and that's what we do. And then the other wild card is what's your air density, because your air density, is going to change the amount of bullet drop. And the two biggest things that affect your air density are your temperature and your altitude above sea level. And so these are set up, 60 degrees and 4,000 feet?
Yeah, which is a standard.
It's pretty standard, And so what that means is at 60 degrees and 4,000 feet, when you dial it to 800, that's your data for 800. However, once you get outside those atmospherics, say, for example, I took this down to 1,000 feet on a 60-degree day, I dial it to 800, I'm going to hit low. And that's because of the fact that the air is denser, so that bullet has more drop. So when we combine this with, say, our laser rangefinder binoculars, the BLR-10Bs, is they have all the sensors on board, basically a weather station on board, that when you hit that button, it is sampling your air pressure, in other words, your altitude, your temperature, compass direction, and the inclination of the shot. And so let's say I laser a target and it gives me an 800 yards, but that example down in 1,000 feet, it's going to tell me to dial to 820. So I add a little bit of elevation, and it knows how much, because it knows what this turret was set up. And so that's basically a system. You think back to when I say, like, what would have young Brian have wanted?
Oh man,
that's a system I can take anywhere in the world.
Yeah,
and be confident that I can get a first round impact. Which is just, if you're a sniper and you read like the old Carlos Halfcock story, stalking for 3 days and killing the general, like, it's freaking amazing that he did that with that equipment.
Yeah,
it's a lot more doable with the equipment we have now, but he did it with that, which is difficult. But
no.
Yeah, I think of our whole system. I wish I could go. I wish the Marine Corps Scout Sniper program still existed. First of all, it'll come back.
It'll come back. Yeah,
but I wish I could go and bring our system to it and teach everybody, because the more advanced you get, the more schools you get to, the more you actually understand the system. But the Marine Corps is just, whether you're infantry dude or a supply guy or whatever, it's just do what you're told, and you just do it because you're told, and you don't know why.
Don't think for yourself.
Yeah, so I think I was 3 years into the sniper community before I really understood ballistics even, and so a Kestrel was kind of, I wouldn't say it was quite new. They had them, maybe a couple years before me, but we were still stuck on dope cards, and Kestrels were kind of just like, oh, it's this advanced thing, but it's in our pocket. I don't know exactly how to use it, But if they did what we do in the 15 minutes to get ready for a hunt, well, I did a podcast on that, where it's like, I bring my gun out, I check my zero, I chrono at the same time that I check my zero, and now everyone's got those Garmins,
Yeah,
these Garmins are so
wonderful
sweet.
tool.
Yeah.
And then you build a profile in an app, that takes 20 seconds, and you know your way around it.
Yeah,
and then from there, you shoot data real quick just to make sure that the stuff is correct. If it's not, you true the muzzle velocity or true the BC.
Yep.
And then sync it over to a rangefinder that you lays, it gives you a range and what to dial to. And that was just unheard of. That's not something we had in the Marines. And I'm just like, holy cow, we would have one rangefinder per team.
Yeah.
Every guy should have a dang rangefinder on.
Yeah.
Right. And so if we went on a mission, had to split up, it was like, who's carrying the rangefinder?
Yeah. I mean, literally, it should be a rangefinder assigned to each rifle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. A BR4 assigned to each rifle type thing, you know?
Yep.
So that advancement is it blew my mind, and it shows me how much that we were not stuck in the Stone Age, just we didn't know the capability. Maybe it didn't quite exist.
Probably didn't quite exist.
Yeah.
Not
I wish I could bring it.
Level.
And I'm sure SF units and stuff, they're running stuff like this, I'm sure. But for our little,
No, I kind of doubt it.
You don't think so?
They're running Kestrels just like you guys were.
They probably are running Kestrels. But
yeah.
Anyway, that whole system together is amazing. And it's, like you said, just freaking lethal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I literally picked the gun up, grabbed it from Henry from paint, checked my zero, had good velocity, and built an app, right? Shoot a lot of different guns, right? I'm all the time shooting a different gun. So I built an app, built a profile in my app.
Yeah.
I didn't have time to build the app.
I'm not smart enough.
Right. So I built my profile literally right then, had everything I needed, went to the range, and we're ready to go.
Yeah.
Right. My app communicates with my binos. I upload it, and now it's ready to go.
Yeah. And also point out the important thing too is that once you upload it to the binos,
Yeah.
the binos are a standalone. Yeah, you can leave your phone at home.
Absolutely.
You don't need it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so shoot your target, and it gives me my holdover, gives me my range and my hold.
Yep.
Right. And then so I'm running the spotter. These guys are shooting, and with that burger, that 215, just you could see the vapor trail so clearly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was something I noticed.
Wild.
We're so used to, when it gets to hunting season, we kind of get our own guns out again.
Yeah.
But when we're doing school after school, and everyone's shooting 6-eyed Creedmoors, and then they handed us these.
Yeah.
And then we were just freaking smashing this deal.
Oh, well, yeah.
Fun. Yeah.
Kind of looks like a freight train going through the air instead of a little sports car.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, no, tons of fun. Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Very well done. Yeah, it's a freaking cool build.
Yeah. No, so super excited. Field Ethos is going to launch it the same day we do. There's like I said, 50 units. It's going to go fast. I think that people are going to be excited about it. I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. So really appreciate you guys jumping on here with me today. And I guess any final thoughts or final words for folks that are on the fence about the Krylon build?
Yeah. About the only thing I'd say is like if I look at if I look at like trends in like sniper rifles, stuff like that, Hank Ian was talking about it, they were using a chassis gun for a while, is I always come back to this kind of semi-traditional style stock, because having this slope back here gives me the ability to run a rear bag, which is usually very difficult to do with a chassis style stock.
Indeed.
And then just because of those chassis style stocks, weight's not, it's not a bad thing, but at the same token, we don't want more of it than we want, as we can build, a fiberglass stock, or McMillan builds just fiberglass stock, so much lighter than you can build a chassis stock, and so there's nothing wrong with a rifle having weight in it, but if it's going to have weight, I don't want the weight in the stock. I want the weight in the barrel.
Yeah.
I want that weight to be forward that holds the barrel down during recoil.
Yeah.
So I just feel like if you're going to have an extra pound or two in a rifle, the most beneficial place for it is out towards the muzzle.
Yeah. Yeah. No, all great points. Yeah.
Approved. Good job.
Go.
To Gunwerks. That's what I say.
Yeah.
Nice. Great. Well, thank you very much. We'll, look forward to the next one.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you like what you're hearing here, please take a second and give us a 5-star rating and a positive review on iTunes or on your favorite podcast app. We appreciate your feedback and suggestions for topics you'd like discussed or questions you want answered on the podcast. You can reach out on Facebook or Instagram or send us an email to podcast@gunwerks.com. Also, be sure and check out our full offering of long-range gear at gunwerks.com. Use promo code LRP for free shipping on any order.